Hi, this video is going to talk about how we can select a file and then read the file using Java. So why would we want to select a file and read a file? Well, there's lots of reasons. For example, we could write a bunch of information to a log file, and we might want to access that at a later time. We could store information about a particular class or object in a file. You can think of maybe employee information or something like that. Now, normally that would happen in a serialized type file, and what we're going to look at today is just a straight text file. So, as an example, the file that we're going to look at here, just pull this up here. So I'm going to look at this this comments.txt file. So it's got a few timestamps in it. We actually created this in a different video, and what we're going to do is we're going to read this and then we're going to print it to the screen. So let's take a look at how we're going to do that. So I'll do a new project here, and let's call this reading from a file. Get rid of some of the extra comments that are in the template. Now, when you read from a file, really there's kind of three steps. One is selecting the file. The second is opening the file. You read from the file, and then you're going to close the file. So we're going to select the file. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to use a scanner object. Now, we've used the scanner up till now to read from the keyboard, but we can also give it the path of a file, and then it'll allow us to scan that file for information. So I'm going to create a private attribute of our class. I'm going to private scanner, and let's call this one the input stream. Add our import. Okay, so so the first thing we need to do here is we're going to need to create a constructor for our reading from a file class. Okay, so let's build our constructor. Okay, so in this constructor, really what we need to do is we need to set up our scanner to point at a particular file. So to do that, I'm actually going to call another method, and this method is going to allow us to use something called a JFileChooser. So what we're going to do here is I'll set up path to store our file name. The path name is probably the best. And then I'm going to say get path. So let's create a method that will return a path object. And to the file we want. Now, we could prompt the user to say enter a file name, and they'd have to know the exact spelling of the file name. There's lots of things that could go wrong there, but Java already has a built-in way of handling that. They use something called the JFileChooser, and we can set it up to look at just files or files and directories or what have you, and it'll return the path to that file name. So let's build that. Okay, so in this method, what we're going to look at here is we're going to have to create a FileChooser object. So JFileChooser, and I'll just call it the FileChooser. So we're going to set the file selection mode, and in here is where you can set up the types of things to look for. So in this case, if I look under Files, I can go Files and Directories, Files Only, or Frame Bits. So in this case, we want to read a file, so I'm going to say Files Only. I don't want to read the directory. Okay. Okay. So what happens is, just like any other time you're used to seeing like a window like this pop up, we have an open button and we have a cancel button. So what actually the FileChooser returns is an integer, and if the integer is cancel, we want to recognize that they didn't want to open a file, and if it's open, then we want to get the path. So we're going to say if the result is equal to cancel option, right? So these are predetermined that's set up for JFileChooser that predefine what number corresponds to cancel. So if that's the case, then we'll just exit. So if it wasn't the cancel option, then we're going to return the FileChooser the path to that file. Okay. So what that will do for us is it'll open up a FileChooser window, and then it's going to return the path to the file that we selected up to our constructor. So in our constructor, remember we want to set up our scanner. So I'm going to say input is equal to a new scanner and give it the path name. Oops, input stream. And then what it's saying is we have an unreported exception, the IO exception. So it must be caught or declared to be thrown. So, so the idea of throwing and catching, there's two options. So I could put this in a try-catch block. So I could say try. Oops. Add our import here. And I'll send this to the error stream. Okay, so there's our try and our catch. Okay, so if we go up here, so now I can say I'm going to create a variable that's called reading from a file, and I'm going to call it my file reader equals okay. So this is selecting a file and opening it. So then the next thing, and actually we can even run it at this point. So what it's going to do is it opens up this wonderful, this is the default JFileChooser, and I can step through my various directories. I can go into, for example, NetBeans projects, right? and I can access it, but then it just closes because we haven't done anything with it. So the next thing we'll do is we'll say my file reader display to screen. So what I want to do is I'm going to create a method that will read the file that's in my file reader and just display whatever it is to the screen. So let's build that next. Okay, so again, this is the kind of thing where we're going to need to try and catch a few things, because there are a few things that could go wrong when you're reading a file. So I'm going to put this all in a try block, and I'm going to say while our input stream has next, right? So while there's things to read, let's print them to the screen. Okay, so I'm using the scanner to read the next line, and then I just print it to the screen. And then we need to catch all the errors. So one of them is no such by using the JFileChooser, we're getting around the risk of many of these things happening, but you can imagine that perhaps something has happened to this file between when we selected it and when we tried to read it, so we have to catch it. Alright, so and the reason we give these system.exit, if you're running this in a batch file, you may the batch file may want to know that we left under some kind of error condition, so it's going to receive a 1. Just a way to sort of to inform other systems. Okay, so we've got the no such file and illegal state exception. And you can call these exceptions anything you want in terms of the variable name, right? So like I could have called this E if I wanted to. So in this case, I'll just print whatever the exception was to the screen and exit. Okay, so that's going to print out whatever was in the file. Oops. And then the last thing we really need to do, so if we go up here, we've selected a file, we've opened the file, we read from the file, now we need to close it. So let's do my file reader .close, and I'll just add a really quick method down here. I'll say okay. Okay, so let's give our little program a run here. And oops, did we? Yeah, we did. Okay. So let's run our. So we get our JFileChooser comes up, and if I click on a directory, So as I was saying, it won't allow us to select a particular directory, but it will, however, allow us to pick files. So if I put files in there, it will it'll pull it up, and then you can see it read and printed these to the screen. Right? So it read each line, printed them to the screen, and then it finished. So there you have it. There's a quick little program that allows us to access files, and you've probably seen other videos that allow us, some of the other videos I did, allow us to write to the file. So we can write to a file, we can read to a file, which gives us tremendous flexibility and capability with Java. Right? Thanks very much.